Partnership development in safeguarding learning event specifically for early years. It's so lovely to have you all here. I'm always in awe of you guys doing the evening session after, I imagine many of you have done a very long day. So welcome. We've got a really great couple of hours ahead of you, but like I say, I promise we will get you away for 9 o'clock. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We've kind of been mentioning this as people have been waiting for us to start, but we do record the session, so I would ask you kindly to just be aware of environmental noise in the background and keep your microphones on mute. We do record the session and we make the recording available on YouTube. So unfortunately my editing skills mean that I can't take off pictures of presenters or if your camera's on. So if you do not want to be as part of the recording, I'd ask you to turn your camera off. And we do have use of the chat bar. So if you do have any questions, please do use the chat and put them in. We will also be using Menti later on for the last section of the evening, just to kind of do some activities with you to get a little bit of feedback. Please don't panic if you haven't used Menti before. It's really easy. I'm going to put some joining instructions in the chat, but it's basically menti.com and then you add a code, which I will share with you. If you can't get on it, don't worry. You can always share your thoughts in the chat as well. In terms of accessing the presentation, we do, like I say, we put the recording on the YouTube channel. As soon as I've got it up and edited, it'll probably be maybe the back end of this week, early next week, and we make sure you've got that recording so you can go back over, and we do share the slide deck with all the resources as well. Please do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that means you'll get a notification of when I put it on. Most of you have already done it now, but if I can please ask you to put your full name and your setting or role in the chat. It just means when I'm completing the attendance list, which you can imagine is quite a challenge when we've got well over 100, it means it's a lot easier for me to kind of pick out who's attended, because often your team's handle, which comes up as on your chat bar, is often the name of your setting or people's initials, so it's really hard to kind of get the full names to mark off the attendance. And then once we've got the attendance, it means you can obtain your certificate, and we'll send you a feedback form as well. So as I've said, we've got a pretty packed agenda with some really amazing guest speakers joining us. You've got me up first. I'm going to give you a little bit of an update from the business unit from North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership. Then we've got Claire joining us, who's going to be giving us the fascinating results of the Growing Up in North Yorkshire survey, and particularly what that means from an early years perspective. Linda Wester's going to join us at around 20 to 8. She's talking about reducing parental conflict. And my colleague Steph Reed's going to be joining us about 8 o'clock, talking about the Harmful Sexual Behaviour Toolkit and strategy that has just recently been developed. About 20 past 8. We are going to have some updates from Helen, and she's going to talk us through some of the JTAI, which is the Joint Targeted Area Inspection feedback that happened a couple of months ago now. Then, as I've already mentioned, we're going to give ourselves a window of about 15 minutes. We know we like to give a bit of a window in case people go over, but 10-15 minutes at the end for questions and answers, and we'll be looking at some of that Menti poll as well. So just to make a start on the business unit updates, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Kat Morrison and I'm a Policy and Development Officer for the business unit. My email's on there, so again, if you have any questions about anything that I'm talking about today, please do just drop me an email. Okay, so just to kind of give you some of the headlines from a business unit point of view, since the last time we had our early years session, probably the biggest piece of work that's been completed is we released the multi-agency safeguarding arrangement document. So this was based on the new Working Together to Safeguard Children. That iteration came out in December 2023, but as partnerships we had about a year to look at how we implemented that and how we updated our safeguarding arrangements. The result of that was our arrangements for North Yorkshire's Safeguarding Children Partnership, which is the document on the right. You can access that via the QR code in the top right of the slide. But I thought it would just be helpful to just share with you, just as a result of those multi-agency safeguarding arrangements, a bit of kind of who's who. And again, I won't go through it all, but these are kind of what we class as our lead safeguarding partners and our delegated safeguarding partners for our statutory services, which are North Yorkshire Council, health. I always say health in kind of inverted commas, but it's our kind of North Yorkshire Integrated Care Board and North Yorkshire Police. Obviously, we know we have a wide variety of relevant agencies, which include yourselves, education, probation, all those sorts of things. But the LSPs and the DSPs are just for our statutory partners. We would encourage, as much as possible, to just have a look at this document and just kind of see how it fits for you guys in your practice, and just get that little bit of an understanding of how everybody works together in North Yorkshire. So this is pretty exciting because this is hot off the press. So you guys are, I think, in fact, I'm pretty certain the first people to see this. And you're probably even seeing it before kind of some of the team managers. But this is our new Being Young in North Yorkshire strategy. So this is being launched. I'm probably putting it on the webpage tomorrow. So this has been a review of our new one, which took us to the end of 2024. So all of our kind of new strategy, we're keeping the same priorities around happy, healthy, safe and achieving. But what you can see, which we've embedded all the way through the strategy, is this kind of symbol of a tree. And that we want to kind of think of the tree as kind of the roots in terms of how all of our work with young people kind of grows across North Yorkshire. And it explains our areas of focus, our principles for how we work, which are really super important, and our measures for success, which focus on what children will tell us so we know that we've been successful. That's a really key bit for us. We want to be able to kind of measure that we're doing a good job in North Yorkshire. This is a really nice bit of our new strategy, which again, I would encourage you to have a little bit of a look at when we put it on the website tomorrow. But it's a little bit of, we kind of want to shout from the rooftops that we have some proud moments. We're pretty proud of some of the stuff we do in North Yorkshire. So we've put it on a little bit of a roadmap for you, and it just goes around kind of showing some of the stuff we do for our schools, our DSL conferences, our practitioner forum, the things like our Day and Night Sleep Right campaign and our Ask Me campaign, Healthy Schools Awards, lots of amazing stuff that all our partners are doing. So, like I say, there's the tree again. But what I really want to draw your attention to is we are having a launch event, and that's going to be on the 7th of May. So it'll be part of one of our regular monthly online learning events. I've popped the booking link on. It's the usual way as you've booked on through here via NYS, or you can scan the QR. We will record it as well, so you can access that, and it's something that you can use in your team meetings. It will just talk through those four key priorities of happy, healthy, safe and achieving, and what it means for you guys in your roles and everybody's roles right across North Yorkshire. Just to make you aware of some website and key document updates from the business unit. The first one, again, I've popped the QR code on the top left of the slide, is we now have a national learning and reports page. So this page is dedicated to sharing key learning and summaries from national reports. So the full documents are linked, but often we know when things are coming through from government, they're pretty meaty. They're normally kind of at least 100 pages long, which we know that people don't have the time to kind of read through. So what we try and do is collate summary documents. If there isn't a summary document, we put one together for you. And that makes it much easier for you guys to kind of read and digest what's going on, and you can share those with your teams and your colleagues. So for example, obviously working together is a huge document, but we've put all the summary documents on there as well. And really important, we put all the learning from the Child Safeguarding Practice Review panel, which is the national panel looking at quite serious incidents with young people. We put all those summaries on as well. Another page which is really relevant for yourselves is we've collated now all the key information specifically for schools and early years providers onto one page on the NYSCP website. So this includes like child protection policies and resources. I know Claire's going to mention a new policy guide when she looks at kind of the survey results for online safeguarding in early year settings. We've added things like that, just so you know it's all there and on one page. On the right, again, I've just linked some key documents that we've updated that are available for you guys on the website. So obviously Steph's going to talk to you about the harmful sexual behaviour toolkit. We've reviewed the toolkit looking at modern slavery and human trafficking. We've done some work around safeguarding children and young people who have parents in prison. So we've got quite a comprehensive practice guidance and then a shorter 1-minute guide as well. And we've also got some guidance for children of parents with learning disabilities and mental health problems. We've got some 1-minute guides that have come out around stalking protection orders and some things around kind of the domestic abuse meetings of MARAC and MATAC, Operation Encompass and the domestic violence disclosure scheme. Operation Encompass, for those of you who don't know, is a process of notification to schools in relation to if there's been an incident of domestic abuse in relation to a young person who's a student at that school. And one of the things that we will look at as part of the JTAI recommendations is how we can kind of extend that to early years settings as well. I just wanted to quickly share this slide with you in terms of just saving the date. So mark it down in your diaries, the 16th to the 20th of June. But we do have Safeguarding Week that week. Anyone who's kind of been part of Safeguarding Week before, this is something that we run with City of York, Hull and East Riding local authorities, and it covers children's safeguarding, adult safeguarding and community safety as well. And what we do is we run a full week of free online learning sessions. So at the minute, we're just in the final stages of putting the programme together, which will be released on Monday. I think we've got over 50. We'll probably have well over 60 free learning events for that week. So again, it's something to just kind of have down in your diary. Once you've got the programme, you can start to sift through and think, find the ones that will be interesting for you guys or that you would want to attend, because obviously there'll be some for adults as well. But we've got, like I say, an amazing programme, and we've reached out to national providers and charities as well. So we've got people like Children's Society coming in, NSPCC are coming in, Papyrus are going to do a session, who are a national charity around suicide, young people's suicide. We've got Crime Stoppers, IDAS, Bernardo's, YGAM, which is a gambling charity. So reams and reams, get it in your diary. Hopefully we'll see you for some of those sessions. And then a reminder to partners that, again, you can access all of our procedures, practice guidance and 1-minute guides on our website. I've added the QR again for you to scan for your convenience. We know it's hard to hold all the safeguarding information that we throw at you, but it's key to remember that if you do want to find out more about a particular topic or theme, the relevant information is up to date on here on the website. Again, we would just encourage partners, if you are kind of looking at a 1-minute guide or a piece of practice guidance, we would always say look on the web page. I know some people like to kind of save a document into their file, and they might have a safeguarding folder kind of saved on their OneDrive or something like that. The online web page will always be the most up-to-date one, and because we're constantly kind of refreshing documents and keeping them up to date, if you've got something saved in a OneDrive or a Word document, within 6 months, chances are it will have been updated. So keep coming back to the website. We've got the QR for the training page, which again, you can access all of our upcoming learning sessions. I've put the upcoming ones on the right for you. So May, we've got our Being Young in North Yorkshire launch, which I've already talked about. June is a really interesting session. We hold these every year, just looking at the counter-terrorism local profile. So North Yorkshire Police come in and deliver that one. Just to make you aware that we don't record that session. I know, like 9 times out of 10 we do record and put them on the YouTube channel, but that one we aren't able to record because it's quite sensitive information. In July, we have a session looking at self-harm and suicide ideation, and Papyrus will join us for that. In September, we'll be looking at learning from case reviews with a particular focus on record keeping and information sharing. In October, we're going to be looking at kind of the voice of the child, and you are back again with us on the 8th of October for our next early years session. Final reminder, next week on the 30th of April, 12 till 1, we do have our practitioner forum. So that's just a really informal hour where we ask frontline practitioners to come and join us, and we look at particular themes. If you're not a member and you would like to be a member, again, we meet every 6 weeks. We know people are busy, so there's not an expectation that you come every single time, but it's just part of that kind of forum group. We consult with you, we listen to you, and we act on what you say, really importantly. If you'd like to be part of it, please pop your name and email in the chat and I will add you to the group. Final slide from me, a reminder to partners of all of our key links. So these are our social media channels, our YouTube page, and also put a QR code to scan for our monthly e-bulletin. Hopefully you're all signed up for that. But that's where you'll get something through at the start of every month with all of our updates and things like, you know, everything I've shared with you around the updates to the documents, any changes to the website, we put that on the bulletin as well. Okay. Hopefully we've got Claire with us, who's ready to make a start on the Growing Up in North Yorkshire survey. Claire, are you with us?
I am, I'm here.
Welcome, Claire.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. So I'm Claire Barrowman, Health and Wellbeing Advisor, and I sit within the school improvement team, but also across public health as well. I do recognise some people on the list tonight, mainly through the Healthy Early Years Award. But tonight I'm going to talk about the Growing Up in North Yorkshire survey, which we do every 2 years. It is done with schools, but what I'm particularly going to focus on tonight is the data from the Year 2 pupils. Because I think then we can sort of think about how some of those aspects start into the early years. So my intention is to go through some of the data, but also hopefully to signpost you to some a range of supporting resources on some of the key aspects that are coming out, particularly for our younger children in North Yorkshire. So you'll see on the next slide that the sort of types of questions that are asked. So all schools in North Yorkshire are given the opportunity to take part in the survey. Every school that does gets their own individual school report. They get their own children's data alongside what the average is for North Yorkshire. And then from that, we pull together county reports and area reports. So the children are asked sort of a little bit about school, about being healthy, feeling safe, some around their feelings, internet safety, and then some around sort of risk-taking behaviours. Obviously asked in an age-appropriate way, and you know, sort of the language is used appropriate. So what we're asking of the Year 2s is going to be phrased very differently to what we ask of the older children. So you'll see on the next slide, we have as I said, we have the county report, which pulls together the data from all the young people who take part, Year 2 and secondary school age children. But we do also have area reports as well. So, and those reports are all freely accessible. And when you get the PowerPoint, you'll be able to click into those reports. I'd really recommend having a look at them, and particularly if your setting is in a certain area, there are differences across the county. So it's always really useful to just see what some of those key aspects are for young people in your particular area. You'll see on the next slide that we do have a really good uptake from schools in engaging with this survey. We've been going for a good 12 years now, so schools are really used to doing this survey. So you'll see for our year 2 children, we had 3,500 do the survey in 2024, slight drop from 2022, but it's kind of roughly around those sort of figures each year. So, you know, that's a lot of our year 2 children who are sort of giving us that sort of insight onto how they're sort of thinking and feeling and what's going on for them. So it's said really, really useful for us to have that insight. So what I've done for this presentation is I've looked at what the priorities were from the 2022 data, which are set out on the next slide. And there was that real focus on pupils' resilience and emotional well-being. With, you know, coming out of COVID, though we were starting to see emotional health and well-being dip before COVID hit us, but then it really kind of did hit rock bottom. But you'll see there are some positive green shoots that hopefully our young people are coming sort of out the other side. Online safety, healthy lifestyles. There's some aspects around substance misuse, which is not pertinent for year 2 pupils, but then some of that aspects around feeling safe as well in school. So on the following slides, what I've tried to do is give the 2024 survey results. If the 2022 survey results are available, they're generally in brackets. And then what just people have said, it's been really helpful if I've kind of colour coded whether that data is moving in a positive direction or perhaps a not so positive direction. But that colour coding is not showing any statistical differences. It's just showing a direction of travel. So it might be a 1% difference, it might be a 20% difference. So it's just showing that direction of travel. Just think it's important to flag that up. So on the first aspect, as I said, is around emotional health and well-being. And what we're seeing across the board really is a positive sort of move. So as you'll see on the next slide, we do ask the year 2 pupils, you know, what do they sort of worry about? And we've started to see that has dropped off. That less children are worrying about one of the issues listed on most days. So you'll see that family is still the thing that if they are going to worry is what they're going to sort of worry most about. But I still think, interestingly, you know, year 2 children worry about the way they look. You know, we're still at kind of 20%. So that kind of body image and sort of perception of from other people is you know, starting to come in there, and national research shows that as well. So just some of those aspects to be kind of aware of, but I think positively they do appear to be worrying less, which is really good for us. The next slide, because we have to sort of put a scale on it, this is about the percentage of pupils who are always sort of feeling happy, and I appreciate that can be difficult because we don't always feel, but it's that general kind of overall sort of feeling. So feel happy at school, we have seen a slight drop off at that, and I think there's kind of many reasons for that. For our younger ones, you know, they've had a lot of time at home, and you know, the sort of COVID cohorts around that, and I know, you know, there's kind of lots of things that's been looked at around that. Feeling happy at home, that positive increase for our young people, and then feeling happy outside where you live. The girls seem more positive about that than the boys from these results. But then really importantly, we know that a real sort of safeguarding, protective aspect for our young people is that children having that trusted, safe adult to talk to is something is upsetting. So I think really positively for our year 2 children, 95% of year 2 children said that they could talk to an adult if they were worried about anything, you know, which is really positive, and that has increased from 2022. Obviously, we'd like that to be 100%, but you know, but that is really positive. I just included the year 6 data there because you can see that it does drop off, and that does continue for us into secondary school as well. And that is something that we've raised with colleagues who work with older children, because obviously we know that is such a protective factor. So that open communication, you know, being able to talk is really, really important. So on the next slide, I've just put a few links. I'm not going to go through them all, but when you get the PowerPoint, you'll be able to click on. and take you to a range of supporting resources around particularly sort of mental health and well-being. For those of you who aren't familiar, we do have a Healthy Early Years Award that runs for free in North Yorkshire. And we've got quite a good website, if I do say so myself. And we've pulled quite a lot of resources onto that website, which is absolutely free to access for any early years provider. So we've tried to pull together a range of support and resources on there. So that's a really good sort of starting point, but I have linked to other resources there. The Anna Freud Early Years in Mind network is really helpful as well. If you've not tapped into that, I'd recommend it. And they send you kind of newsletters and updates and aspects as well. And that's all for free as well. So just something that you might want to sort of tap into and get information about. So another aspect that we move on to now is about online safety. And this is where we do have more concerns for our Year 2 pupils. So you'll see on the next slide that we ask our Year 2 pupils about have they got a device, technology in their bedroom after going to bed, have they got a TV in their room, and do they communicate online with people they don't know. So you'll see for our Year 2 children, 25% have got a device in their bedroom after going to bed. And we know that children being alone in their bedroom with unsupervised technology is a real safeguarding concern for us. It's a very vulnerable group of young people. TV in their room, smart TVs, accessing YouTube, etc. Children are very tech savvy these days. They can soon work their way around and sort of be watching and seeing all sorts of things. And that communicating online with people they don't know, 24% of our Year 2 children, which is sort of nearly double the amount for Year 6s. So I think it's a little bit of perhaps thinking that they're safe because they're only Year 2s, and then sort of put some of that supervision and things in place for sort of Year 6, where actually, Year 2 pupils are very vulnerable. And again, communicating with people they don't know in real life, it's more of the boys, and it's more through gaming. So I think that's a real sort of key message for us to think about, that vulnerability of such a young group, perhaps not having the knowledge or the skills to know what people might sort of be asking of them if they're sort of being unsupervised or sort of communicating with people. So I think that's something that we'd really like you to take away and really think about those safeguarding messages for parent and carers around this particular sort of aspect. I appreciate the next slide is a bit sensitive. It's from the Internet Watch Foundation, who look and monitor around child sexual abuse imagery online. And just to sort of flag up there that we've seen a slight decrease in 11 to 13-year-olds around that sort of sexual abuse online, but they have seen that increase in 7 to 10-year-olds and child sexual abuse online. So the children are getting younger. And just thinking about that unsupervised Year 2 data, that could be leading to a very vulnerable sort of group of young people around that. So hopefully you're all aware of the pants material from the NSPCC, so that about keeping yourself, what's in your pants is private. They are bringing out the Techosaurus, which is a new online safety dinosaur, so supporting some of those sort of key safety messages for our younger children. So what happens in real life, but also that what happens online as well. And the London Grid for Learning, they've got a really nice one about not getting undressed or changed in front of sort of technology and things. So just a bit of sort of signposting there. So the next slide is showing that perhaps parent and carers are, increasing their supervision and, that they are aware of what their children are sort of doing online. But I think that sort of technology in the bedroom and linking to, healthy bedtime routines, technology-free bedtimes is something that we do need to be sort of supporting our parent and carers with. So the next slide, you'll see again, there's that linking to a range of sort of supporting resources. But I think it's been really noticeable in things like the ChildNet or CEOP or the NSPCC, they now have particular leaflets aimed at parent and carers who have children who are under the age of 5. You can see that there's that sort of shift in that sort of guidance. So again, it might be something that you could send out to your parent and carers, and just, you know, sort of those sort of flyers and information would be really helpful. And then the next one, which Kat refers to on the next slide, is the London Grid for Learning have produced some online safety materials, particularly for early years settings, and they're all absolutely free to access. So they've got an online safety audit, they've got a parent sort of online presentation that talks you through how to kind of do the presentation. They've got sort of a early years sort of online safeguarding charter, etc. So real supportive documents that I think are really worth having a look at, and just thinking about that online safety messages and sort of support that we can do both within your setting, but also wider to parent and carers, because that's definitely an aspect that I think we need to focus on around these aspects. So the next sort of priority was around kind of bullying or sort of negative behaviours. So you'll see from our year 2 pupils on the next slide around feeling safe at school, or feeling safe going to and from school, feeling safe where you live outside. So again, sort of a little bit perhaps more the boys, sort of a slight drop off there in that sort of feeling safe within going to and from school and where they live. And 10% of year 2 children feeling scared to be at school because of other children most of the time. So there is some positive sort of shifts in this data, but obviously we want children to always feel safe at school or our early years provision. So again, just kind of being mindful of that, and I think just maybe just thinking about some of our boys around that, I think would be helpful. And then healthy lifestyle, we ask, say, a range of questions around that. So on the next one, you'll see that we have got a positive shift in year 2 children saying that they've got, you know, a set bedtime, particularly when it's school the next day, and the hand washing across the board has dropped off. COVID, I think we had the highest percentages ever. Since then, it just seems to have absolutely sort of dropped off. So that really important thing about hand washing after going to the toilet, before they have the lunch, and, you know, making that part of the routine is really, really important. And we were seeing some concerns around sort of oral health and teeth, but we are starting to see some positives around that, in that more children are cleaning their teeth and more are going to the dentist. Again, I think through COVID it was dropping off. And I know in some areas of the county there has been support around toothbrushing schemes and trying to link more closely with dentists within the community. So hopefully that's starting to have that real positive effect. But that oral health is a real key message that we need to continue with, because it is still one of the key reasons that under 5s go into hospital for an operation and it's generally on their teeth in North Yorkshire. So again, that is a key message for us. The next one asks about food. 3% had nothing to eat or drink before school for our year 2 pupils, and we can see that increases for our year 6s, and then it increases again for our secondary school children. So I think those really important messages about eating and drinking is really important, and thinking about, you know, if you have got young children arriving at your setting who are, you know, might be hungry or thirsty, and how we can help with that. Eating fresh fruit, eating vegetables. We know that children need to try things about 12 times, is it 12 or 15 times, I think, before they get used to the taste and the texture. So really thinking about giving them the opportunity to try lots of different sort of fruits and vegetables. I know many of you do fantastic growing, if it's just in a tub on the windowsill, little baby strawberries or tomatoes, so that real understanding. And we have got our leaflets around healthy packed lunch guides as well, depending on your setting. If children are bringing packed lunches in, we have got a range of support and information around that on the Healthy Early Years website as well. But the more we can get them to grow food, understand food, try food, cook, then the great that's going to be, particularly from those sort of early years, is really, really important. And we also ask about physical activity as well. And I think what's really noticeable, and we see this just increase through the year groups, is that boys from year 2 seem to be enjoying physical activity already more than the girls. So I enjoy taking part in physical activity in sports. 74% of the boys compared to 64% of the girls, and that gap just gets wider and wider as the children get older. So again, I think really thinking about making sure that the children are being physically active and that they're engaging with it and enjoying it is really, really important, and understanding why it's important that they move and keep sort of healthy and aspects around that, but just really thinking about perhaps your girls as well around that, and how we can really positively engage in some of that sort of physical activity aspects. So again, on the next slide is a link to a range of hopefully supportive resources for you. So we've got on the Healthy Early Years website a great link to some resources, particularly supporting around oral health. The Sleep Charity has a wealth of really helpful information about bedtime routines, a healthy bedroom environment, technology free. So again, if you're trying to give those kind of top tips to parent and carers, they've got some really lovely resources on there. And then some health eating resources and being active resources on our Healthy Early Years website as well. And then sort of bringing it all together, we do ask our year 2s, have you kind of had lessons around particular sort of topic areas? And I think really positively from my point of view, we've seen such an increase for our year 2 children around these topic areas, and that the children are finding these lessons useful. This data has really positively moved forward over the last sort of 4 years, really. And I know as early years providers, you'll be doing some of that learning as well. So, if we can start that earlier, that's going to be better for our children as they go through and get older as well. So that was a snapshot from our kind of year 2s, but just say overall for the county, we're going to continue with having resilience and emotional wellbeing as a priority, really focusing in on children having that trusted adult, safe adult, because we know that that's such a protective factor. The online safety risks, I think for our younger ones, that technology in that bedroom, perhaps being unsupervised, and playing and talking to people sort of through games is one that I hope you will sort of take away and reflect on. And then that sort of healthy lifestyles as well, so continuing with that oral health aspect, and that healthy eating and that sort of physical activity, and just being mindful of some of those differences already at a young age between our boys and girls. So I think they're the kind of key ones for the younger age groups. And then just to move on a couple of slides, please. Next one. Just to remind you, slide before, we do have the Healthy Early Years award. As I said, I recognise a few colleagues on the call tonight who've engaged with us with the Healthy Early Years award and achieved. It is free for all North Yorkshire providers. And it gives you criteria around PSAD, emotional health and wellbeing, active lives and healthy food. It gives you an evidence-based criteria that you sort of showcase what you're doing against, really. We've had some fantastic submissions, really showcasing the fantastic work you're doing, and then you getting that recognition for what you have in place. If you're interested, when you get the PowerPoint, there's our website, or you can email us. We do have some free training happening in June, so come along, find out a little bit more. And it's a good way of where we showcase and share practice between providers as well. So I hope that's given you kind of overview of what our young people in North Yorkshire are telling us. As I said, I particularly focused in on the year 2 children, so hopefully you can think and reflect on that for the early years aspect as well. I appreciate it's probably no time for questions, but my email address was on the start of the slide, so if anybody has got any then want to get in touch, that's absolutely fine. Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll let Claire get on with her evening and leave us to get to the end of the session. But I'll collate those and get them back to Claire, and we'll make sure any answers do come back to the group. I'm conscious there's conversations happening in the chat just in relation to accreditation of training. And what I would say is we are going to have some discussions around that at the end of the session. That's going to be part of our mentee conversations around that training. But please know that I'm kind of taking on board what's happening in the chat. I just don't want to kind of take away from people that are presenting, and we're listening to it, and me and Helen will kind of come back and think about how we can kind of make it really clear in terms of what's available for the training. But we want to speak to you guys at the end of the session about what training's available, how we can make it more accessible. So if you're having those thoughts, stay with us, and we'll kind of get to it at the end of the evening. But yeah, thank you very much, Claire. Like I say, I've heard those a few times, but they're always fascinating. The early year stuff is just brilliant to kind of listen to in terms of what's happening with our young people. But yeah, we will let you get on with your evening, and I will introduce Linda, or Lynn, who's going to join us, hopefully with us, Lynn, who's going to be talking about reducing parental conflict.
Yeah, I'm here. I was listening to that very interesting presentation before mine, actually. Okay, are you going to move my slides on, Kat? Is that the way it's going to work? I just want you to double check. Okay, so I am Linda Wester, known as Lynn, and I am the Reducing Parental Conflict Lead for North Yorkshire. So to give you some idea is that North Yorkshire have been part of the Department of Work and Pensions Reducing Parental Conflict Challenge Fund grant for the last 3 years, and we've just got our 4th year's worth of funding. So this challenge fund for the Reducing Parental Conflict programme is about raising awareness within social care, that's children's social care, partner agencies, and also within the community. So tonight's presentation will just give you an overview of what we've been doing and what we intend to do. You just move me on, Kat, please. Thank you. So as I said, North Yorkshire's Reducing Parental Conflict programme has now been running for, this is its 4th year, but it's actually been in development since 2018. So we'll talk a little bit about that. What is parental conflict? We'll give you the definition. Why reducing parental conflict is important and why it's important to children. How parental conflict differs from domestic abuse. And I've also got some information about resources and signposting that you can have. Can you just move me on a slide, please, Kat? So parental conflict can impact children from all sorts of families, and that happens whether parents are married, cohabiting, separated or divorced, whether they are biological related or unrelated, such as step parents, blended families or divorced families, same sex. It's all about having that parental relationship with a child. So when I talk about parents, I am including all those different parental relationships that children have. You just move on a slide, please, Kat. Thank you. So arguing is a normal part of family life, and it can actually demonstrate really good role modeling for children because they can see conflict being resolved with warmth, they can see it being resolved with respect, and they can see that parents are finding positive solutions to the conflict that they're experiencing. But on our screens is actually the DWP's definition of what parental conflict is. And this is this frequent, intense arguing that parents resolve poorly. And the conflict can take many forms. So it can go the silent treatment, not talking to each other. It can be shouting at each other, getting quite intense in those clashes. But children are always affected by the relationship that their parents have. In fact, the biggest influence on parents, as we all know, is their children. But it's the quality of that interparental relationship that directly impacts on how children feel. So I'll discuss later, as it says on the slide, that parental conflict sits below domestic abuse. And later on in my presentation, we'll look at the difference between the two. So we are not talking about domestic abuse. We are talking about this arguing that parents lose the ability to communicate with each other and resolve things in a positive way. Could you just move me on a slide, please? Just to give you some idea of why it's important that we look at that interparental relationship and that conflict, and why reducing that conflict within those parental relationships is important to children. So this is some statistics from the Department of Social Justice, and it shows that children can experience 2 to 3 times more at risk of homelessness. They are more likely to be in trouble with the police or spend time in prison. Education underachievement because of the stresses that are going on at home. May experience more substance misuse. Teen pregnancy increases by 1.7 times. It is a big cause of mental health issues with children, and later they'll take those difficulties into their adult relationships and may repeat the cycle of not being able to manage their own conflicts that they come up with their partners. They're more likely to experience debt, and they're more likely to experience being on benefit. Parents are the biggest influence on children, and the quality of their interparental relationship directly impacts on how they feel. And those statistics, I know we've jumped on a slide, but those statistics really back up that thinking. So there is a huge body of evidence to support the impact of parental conflict on children. And the most recent survey that the DWP done was in 21 and into 2022. And this found that 10% of children in the UK are living within families that report relationship distress. This means that communication has broken down and the arguing has moved from the constructive to the destructive. So offering evidence-based support with the parent-child relationship alone is likely to be ineffective when the conflict exists. And this is the reason why we want to raise awareness across the board about the importance of being curious about the quality of that interparental relationship and how it could be impacting on what is going on within a family or how a family are presenting. You just move me on a slide, please, Kat. I've got a short video. This video was actually produced by the Early Intervention Foundation, which is now Foundations. But what it does do really clearly is tell us how, if we don't address parental conflict within a family that we're trying to work with or communicate with, then anything we try to do to support that family and help them could be ineffective. Could you play the video for me, Kat, please?
Conflict between parents is normal, but if exposure is frequent, intense, and poorly resolved, this can have a damaging impact on children, resulting in long-term mental health issues and emotional, social, behavioural, and academic problems as they grow up. Today, there is a growing awareness of the importance of the quality of the relationship between parents, whether they are together or separated, and the need to tackle conflict in the best interests of children. There may be lots of services in your area that focus on parenting, or the relationship between parents and children, but the ability of these services to help children is likely to be reduced if damaging parental conflict is left unresolved. This is a problem if it means that important local services and programs aren't equipped to improve children's lives in the way we all want them to. Many practitioners and services working at the front line lack the confidence, tools and knowledge to identify and support families where damaging conflict is going on. Many parents only seek help when conflict reaches crisis point, and many families experiencing poverty or financial stress, who are at a greater risk of experiencing damaging conflict, are less likely to get access to vital support. Early intervention to reduce the impact of parental conflict needs to be at the heart of services, to improve outcomes for children and improve the effectiveness of other family support. We can help you to shape these services in your area. Visit our website to find out more.
I think the video depicts very clearly the difficulties that exist if we don't address parental conflict. And I did see a message in the chat there, and these things can be quite triggering for us personally, because there are times in all our lives when stresses and strains that are placed upon us for various reasons can cause us to lose that ability to communicate, but there is help and support out there. So as I've said previously, the biggest influence on children is the parents, and the quality of that relationship is at the heart of every family. And if that relationship is in distress, and if we feel a little bit too nervous about intruding and getting involved, or perhaps saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, it can be so easy just to ignore the fact that actually what's going on between the two parents is actually adding to the stresses that are existing for a child. That parental relationship, whether, as I said earlier, whether parents are living together, whether they're separated, whether they're divorced, it regulates all of the other family relationships within that network. The healthy relationships are able to form strong alliances centered on the issues and the problems that parenting present. They may have difference of opinions, they may not agree on the best way forward, but they can resolve their conflict in a positive way. But the essence of a good parental relationship is that parents are able to keep the child at the center of their thinking. The child is in the forefront of their minds. So that represents a really healthy relationship. But life isn't perfect. Life isn't like that. We move along scales as different things impact on our lives as we go along, causing us stresses. You just moved me on a slide. So as I've said, healthy couple relationships keeps couple at the center, and they focus on the children. And that's when we start to see, as we've talked about previously in my presentation, we start to see that positive role modeling for conflict resolution. Children start to see that actually parents can resolve differences, arguments and conflict, showing each other respect, showing each other warmth and working together. So if we look at the difference between parental conflict and domestic abuse, which is what we're going to move on to now, this is where it can get tricky. So just to alert people, can you move me on a slide, Kat, please? So the triggers for conflict, as I've talked about, can be any of these things that you see on your screen at the moment. There's so many things that, particularly in our modern lives, that can cause us stress, be it money worries, difficulties at work. The arrival of a new baby often creates a tremendous amount of stress for a family. Even though it's one of the most happiest times in people's lives, it brings stresses and strain with it. There could be substance misuse, gambling issues, health conditions, be that mental or physical health of either a parent or a child, can put added pressure on families. And that's when what difficulties parents experience in their relationship were able to resolve their problems relatively easily, and now moving into this more difficult area of parental conflict when communication breaks down. Just push me on a slide, please. Parental conflict sits below the domestic abuse threshold, which we've already talked about, and parental conflict is normally issue-based. Just move me on a slide, please, Kat. So looking at what we've got on your screen now is what's called the intimate relationship continuum, and we've got that respectful, equal, cooperative, happy relationship with this is a healthy relationship. And as I talked about how we can just move up the scale into interparental conflict when things become stressful for us, when they impact on our ability to communicate. And then we start to move into the parental conflict area. Just move that thing up. So the intercouple parental conflict sits in the middle. Sorry, my slides just disappeared. And then we move into domestic abuse. So the difference between the two is, as I say, usually parental conflict is centered around an issue. It does not have that coercive control. It does not have power imbalance. You do not see one parent that is fearful of the other parent. You don't see any of the violence, be that physical or sexual violence. Okay. To give you an overview of the difference between the two, that is generally what we're talking about. What you do see in parental conflict is that intense, poorly resolved arguing, parents normally giving each other silent treatment. They may not actually speak to one another. They may revisit arguing again and again and again around the same subjects. That they may be quite intense, and they may be quite shouting. And this is when children start to become adversely affected. If we can support families at this stage, that's when we can reduce the impact on children. One thing I will say is that it's very important to stress that if you believe that there is domestic abuse in a relationship, then you must follow your own local policies to manage those concerns. Parental conflict is not an excuse for domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is not just an argument that's got out of hand. So we must be mindful when we're looking at whether we're looking at parental conflict or domestic abuse to think about what we're actually dealing with. And the one thing that I can report is that over the last 3 years, well, slightly longer than that, but the last 3 years of the funding, North Yorkshire have been really successful in our practitioners being confident to identify the difference between parental conflict and domestic abuse, and having the curiosity and confidence to talk about relationships with the families that they're working with and actually explore the quality of that interparental relationship. And that's one thing that the programme has been extremely successful at. Could you move me on a slide, please, Kat? Am I running out of time? Am I running out of time?
You're all right. You're a couple of minutes over, but you're fine. Don't worry.
Yeah,
We'll make it
okay.
back.
I will quickly fly through the last 3 slides. So what you might see in parental conflict is on your screen at the moment. So you might see door slamming, throwing items, helplessness, shouting, yelling, arguing intensively, fighting with each other, criticizing. So that's what a child might hear and see if there is parental conflict in the family. Can I have the next slide, please, Kat? In domestic abuse, this is what a child might see. There might be injuries. They might be living in fear. They might be experiencing emotional abuse. They might be seeing threatening behaviour. They might see that imbalance of power. And they might be isolated, the partner from friends and family. So they don't see very many people within that household. Just move me on a slide, please, Kat. I won't show the video because actually this is on one of the resource sites that I'll be talking to you about in a moment. But I would highly recommend that you actually look and visit the Relationship Matters website and the See It Differently videos. There's a whole suite of them, and they can actually support parents to understand how children experience parental conflict. If you move me on a slide, please. So just to give you some resources for parental conflicts, North Yorkshire, along with 13 other local authorities, have pulled together the Relationship Matters website. There is a great deal of resources for both practitioners, yourselves, and parents that you can signpost parents to, which will support parents to understand what parental conflict is and the impact it has on children. On the Relationship Matters website and on its own website, there are the See It Differently videos, which allows parents to experience how a child might view an intense arguing between parents and how parents could perhaps have approached that differently. There is a massive amount of information on the government Reducing Parental Conflict page. I suggest you go and have a research of those. Clickrelationships.org again has lots of information to support parents. We are going to be hopefully running some more how to have difficult conversations with parents on the NYS sites. The ones we have run have actually been quite successful, and we hope to commission some more. And I would recommend, if you have come across parents who perhaps do need some support, you direct them to Relate. Although Relate are actually in administration at the moment, their website is still up and running, and I highly recommend the AI tools that they have, certainly the Relate bots, and in the middle, which offers those insights into a child's perspective across the various co-parenting scenarios. Great resources they are. Sorry, I've gone over. Hopefully you can catch that back.
Yeah, absolutely fine, Lynn. Thank you so much. It's such a fascinating topic. Again, if you do have any questions for Lynn, please do pop them in the chat. But we will let Lynn get on with her evening in the next few minutes. But like I say, we will collate anything. If you've got anything that you want to share with Lynn or ask, we will share her contact details as well, which I think are on that final slide.
Yes.
But yeah, huge thank you for coming and presenting for us this evening, Lynn. And I'm going to hand over to Steph, who's going to be talking about the Harmful Sexual Behaviour Toolkit.
Thanks, Kat. Hi, good evening all. Firstly, it's so lovely to see so many people. We really appreciate your coming out after a hard day's work to join us this evening. So thank you firstly for that. So to explain who I am, I'm Stephanie Freeth. I work alongside Kat at the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership. I'm a Policy and Development Officer, and as Kat has already said, I'm here to talk to you about our Harmful Sexual Behaviour Toolkit that we launched about 2 weeks ago now, and just to run you through it. So Kat, if you just forward on to the next slide, that would be great. So just very briefly, I know you've had some really interesting talks already this evening, so I'll do my best to be as equally interesting. So this evening we're going to have a really quick look at why, what, and where, really. So why have we developed the strategy and the toolkit? What were the reasons behind it? What is it? And most importantly, as practitioners, where can you find what you need? So if you forward on to the next one for me, Kat, that would be great. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to take you through a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the past year or so. And we've been working as a team on this since about this time last year. And as you can see from the slide there, so about this time last year, the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Partnership Executive made a strategic decision to look at harmful sexual behaviour across North Yorkshire, across the whole partnership, and really look at a whole system approach to gain a kind of root and branch view of how harmful sexual behaviour is identified and handled and supported across North Yorkshire. Now, data from the NSPCC and Centre for Expertise on Child Sexual Abuse tells us around a third of sexual abuse occurs and is actually by other children, child on child, which is a really hard thing to think about. And I think we all know as well, as observers and people that work with children and families, there's been an increase in the range and number of different types of behaviours, especially in settings, and especially in schools. So, as I said, the executive identified the need to have a clear approach to harmful sexual behaviour, and like I said, an approach to understanding and most importantly, dealing with it and empowering practitioners to deal with it. So looking at the slide here, we were very fortunate to get some funding from the Office of Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, and we approached the NSPCC, who did our root and branch audit, and some of you may have been involved in that process as well. So the audit was sent out, as I said, across the partnership, information collected back and disseminated across a partnership event. And as you can see from the slide here, it says the NSPCC have said there was evidence of effective and positive multi-agency working, which is really, really positive as well. So that formed our priorities and our strategy, which was agreed a couple of months ago now, and into the implementation of the strategy and the launch of the toolkit. So Kat, if you just forward on to the next slide, that'd be great. Okay, so looking at the strategy, as I said, is really quite straightforward. It's what we call the US model. So understand, scale and support. And exactly as the slide there is, looking at harmful sexual behaviour or sexualised behaviours. What is harmful sexual behaviour and what isn't it? What is the agreed definition of HSB, and what language do we use across the whole of the patch in North Yorkshire? And what was really, really important from the information we got back from the root and branch audit and from working with our partners, because this is a partnership approach across the partnership, the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership, it was really, really important to look at prevention, and really, really important to look at this strategy and the toolkit in the guise of relationships and healthy relationships. And I know, going on from having listened to Lynn as well, it kind of goes hand in glove with that. And it really kind of dovetails into how can we support children and young people to understand healthy relationships from the get-go. So from when they're first born and they're first held, and as they get older they're asked to give granny a kiss, that sort of thing. How can we ensure bodily autonomy? How can we develop self-esteem? And how can we help parents, carers, nursery, school and community groups to do that? So as it says here as well, to understand the scale and capture the scale of harmful sexual behaviour across North Yorkshire, so we can identify the key areas and difficulties as well. And we're looking at that by doing thematic reviews on that, as well as collecting data. And from the support point of view as well, really, really crucially, knowing how each role has its place to support, and to ensure that practitioners are really, really equipped to do so, and not only equipped to give parents, carers and families and children that support, but also where do they go if they don't know where to go next? Where do you go if you've got a situation that you haven't dealt with before, it's been a long time ago, and you just need some help and reassurance? So that is the US strategy. So Kat, if you move on a slide, that'd be great. Okay, so that kind of leads us onto the toolkit, and I'm not going to go through it in depth. I would really hope that you have the time and the inclination to look at it afterwards. But we decided on the approach of a toolkit based around the US model. And as I said before, it looks at what harmful sexual behaviour is and isn't, to look at learning in the context of sexualised behaviours. And the context of sexualised behaviours is really, really important, and we'll come on to that. And to look at the overall approach of prevention and looking at relationships. And as I've said already, and it won't be the last time I say it this evening, relationships is really the golden thread that runs through the whole of the project. The toolkit aids practitioners in identifying harmful sexual behaviours. It offers practical tips. It gives step-by-step guidance. It gives simplified responses to harmful actions. It signposts to training and ensures that all practitioners are prepared to escalate concerns. And like I said before, they know where to get the support they need. It's really been developed in consultation with partners. We had a month-long consultation a couple of months ago of the toolkit and of the strategy. Some of you on the call may have been involved in that. It's gone out to our practitioners forum. It's gone out to some of our key partners in terms of approach and the actual basis of the toolkit as well. So we hope it's really, really usable guidance as well. We've aimed it for it to be interactive, aimed at practitioners across the wider children's workforce. And it really looks at lots of different elements as well of harmful sexual behaviour and sexualised behaviour. So it might be that you're someone who's worked in a setting for a number of years, and perhaps you haven't come across a specific instance, or you work in wraparound care, or you have a new member of staff that you're looking to upskill and give confidence to. So it really aims at helping as little or as much as you need. Or simply, if you just need a refresher, you want some reassurance that actually you're approaching something in the right way, this is what the toolkit aims to do as well. So like I've said here, you can use it as little as much as you need. It's been designed to be jump in, jump out, not intended to be read from start to finish at all. It's very, very much mixed media. So we have 3 scenario videos that we've created, which aren't training videos, but are just little videos that are less than 5 minutes long each, based around different circumstances, to really get you talking amongst your teams about what harmful sexual behaviour could look like, some of the questions that you could ask if you had queries, and to really put harmful sexual behaviour into context as well. And like I said, we've worked in collaboration with partners, and they've been really pivotal in getting the messaging right and testing the usability of these videos. I will say at this note, I can't see the chat, Kat, so if anything comes up, please do let me know and I'll do my best to answer it. Thank you. I know you will. So yes, moving on, lots of mixed media. And what we really ask you to do, pretty please, is use this toolkit and please feed back to us. We understand we've tried to appeal to as many people as we can as possible, but it's not one size fits all. And when it's really used in anger, that's when we'll really see how useful and how usable it is. So we'll be really grateful for any feedback that you're happy to share with us and when it's used. So yeah, like I say, the other point of this toolkit as well is, though it's aimed at practitioners, there is information that can be shared with parents and carers as well, and they can be signposted to it also. So that's just very briefly of how the toolkit comprises. So Kat, if you just move on to the next one, please. Okay, I think kind of echoing something Lynn just said as well, it's kind of worth bearing in mind as well that harmful sexual behaviour can be quite a difficult topic to talk about. As I said before, I think it's really hard to think about children harming one another. So it is something that we'd say to be mindful of when addressing, be mindful of when you're listening to things like this, or you're listening to any training that we put up online, and be really kind to yourself as well. It's quite often an area, and I know an area when I was a practitioner, that can be quite difficult to deal with, because like I said, it is so context driven and so emotionally charged. But that said, moving on, so the toolkit really looks at what harmful sexual behaviour is and what it isn't, and what technology assisted harmful sexual behaviour is as well. And kind of up until fairly recently, I say fairly recently, past 10, 15 years, there was no kind of universally agreed definition of what harmful sexual behaviour is. And definitions really changed between studies and different disciplines and even cultures and even over time. And this kind of made comparisons between studies quite problematic. However, we have been very lucky as a partnership and as an authority to work with Professor Simon Hackett, who is the author of the Hackett Continuum, which I'll show you in a minute, which kind of categorises harmful sexual behaviours. And that is the framework that we've adopted in North Yorkshire. And we've also adopted Professor Hackett's definition. So I've put it up here, as you can see. Harmful sexual behaviour refers to sexual actions by children and young people that are developmentally inappropriate. So that's outside of what is safe for their age and stage of development, and harmful to themselves and others. So I think the key thing that I've highlighted here is about being developmentally inappropriate. And we really, really urge, when we're talking about this and thinking about this and looking at this, to really consider development rather than a chronological age. I think that's really, really important to consider, especially when we're considering things like children with additional needs as well. So moving on from that, what is TAHSB? So we like to throw lots of acronyms around, but what is technology assisted harmful sexual behaviour? Again, it can include both contact, so in-person, and non-contact behaviours, so behaviours online, which are referred to as technology assisted. So this includes children and young people being harmed via the internet or social media, both on and offline. And it's really, really key to say in with this as well, is that technology assisted behaviour is treated just as seriously as other forms of harmful sexual behaviour. And quite often with sexualised behaviour and harmful sexual behaviour, online harmful sexual behaviour can lead to offline and contact, we call actual physical harmful sexual behaviour. And quite often, as we know, this is behaviour that is deemed as harmful and involving an imbalance, differential, or an absence of consent. So just really, really key to say, one of the key takeaways of this, other than looking at behaviour in context, is that technology assisted is equally as serious as harmful sexual behaviour. And I think it needs to be recognised as well that also it's a lot harder nowadays to keep hold of and understand technology assisted behaviour. Not only is technology changing really, really rapidly, we have hotspots, we have public Wi-Fi, and so it's a lot harder, I think, for parents to monitor and understand what children are doing online. Anyway, I'm conscious of the fact that I probably don't have too much time, so I'll move on. So what isn't harmful sexual behaviour? Was anything that's age appropriate. And at this stage, I have to say that even if a behaviour isn't deemed as harmful, all sexualised behaviour requires a response. You'll know yourselves from being practitioners, you know about child development, and we know it's not unusual, for example, for a preschooler perhaps to sit on the carpet at story time and perhaps have their hand in their underwear. We know what's developmentally appropriate and what isn't. We know that children can have curiosity about their bodies, and as they get older, their sexuality as well. So what isn't harmful sexual behaviour? Consensual behaviour, so anything that's mutual and consensual between children of a similar age, stage and development. And anything that's part of normal sexual development, about learning about boundaries, anything that's balanced with curiosity. Again, as I said before, we really, really urge you to look at behaviours in context. Again, talking about that preschooler that sat on the carpet looks very, very different to a preschool. It's very, very different to a year 11 child doing the same thing in assembly, or altogether different. So we asked you to consider that. So moving on, I mentioned the Hackett Continuum, and this is the continuum that's been adopted by North Yorkshire. other similar continuums like the Brook traffic light tool are available, but this is the one that's used throughout North Yorkshire, and we suggest that you look at, and you can see it's kind of works in a traffic light kind of sense. And I've bobbed the definition of harmful sexual behaviour in the bottom just to remind you, and it works through green through to red, so from developmentally typical through to harmful sexualized behaviours. I think it's really important to recognise and to take away that harmful sexual behaviour can and does take place on a continuum. So from this left to right, green to red. Like I say, all sexualised behaviour warrants a response, but not all sexualised behaviour is considered harmful. So again, it's considering that context, and we help you with that level of context in the toolkit. We link to lots of different resources from people like the Lucy Faithfull Foundation to the NSPCC to help support with what is developmentally appropriate and what isn't, because we have this area in the middle, which is the problematic inappropriate section there. And one of the video scenarios demonstrates this, that actually sometimes when you have the behaviours that may be considered amber, they can be quite ambiguous, and it's really key to get information, to get the right contextual information about what is going on, because that can move to red or indeed to green, which will make a lot of difference in terms of the support that young person gets for that behaviour. So when we're looking around the kind of green, developmentally typical, and I think Claire's mentioned it already this evening, it's things like pants work, speaking to your early help consultant to get advice on what to do to support that behaviour, having conversations with parents, introducing things like anatomical names for body parts, all that sort of thing. And as you're looking, and we can't be hard and fast on this, but when you start to look at more around the kind of amber region, you could be looking at some sort of early help support or referral into children's social care so the MAST team can unpick it further. But again, a part of this toolkit is we've got resources dotted all the way through to help with decision making, to help with advice, and again lots and lots of signposting of different places you can go if you're just unsure. So if it's not your early help consultant, it could be a police liaison officer, it could be the professionals consultation line, it could be the NSPCC, it could be the Lucy Faithfull helpline that they have in terms of harmful sexualised behaviour. So we've really aimed to try and give you support kind of wherever you need it. Sorry, Kat, moving on, because I know I'm over time already. Thank you. Okay, so like I say, the importance of healthy relationships runs through this, and we don't just look at it in terms of healthy relationships between adults, and we look at cultivating healthy relationships, not just in terms of the sort of relationships our children will have in future. We look at relationships as in terms of friendship groups, not just romantic relationships. How do you cultivate these? How do we help children recognise what a healthy relationship does and doesn't look like? How do we role model these things? How do we support families to do this? How do we encourage families to have an open and honest dialogue about sex and relationships that's age appropriate? So it's all within the toolkit. So we look at why healthy relationships are important. We look at healthy and unhealthy sexualised behaviours per age, as we've said. We look at child exploitation as well, and how children and young people that have been exploited, how that's linked to CSB, and how those that have been exploited can sometimes exploit themselves because of the normalisation of that sort of behaviour and the power imbalances involved. So we talk a lot about that. We talk about pornography and misogyny as well, and especially for settings, there's a section there that talks about a setting approach to having zero tolerance on pornography and misogyny, and we refer to information in keeping children safe in education along with that as well. We also have a section on how to have difficult conversations with parents, because when our colleagues were road testing some of this information, some of the feedback we got is that sometimes it can be really difficult to know how to initiate a conversation with parents, especially around awkward things like harmful sexual behaviours. So if they're needed, we've got some kind of starters for 10 on what to consider, the principles to consider, the work to do first, the sort of questions to ask. So that's all all covered in there as well. And actually from that, we're actually as a partnership going to be running a campaign later in the year called Talking Tips, which is all about kind of having those difficult conversations on different topics as well. So that's something that will be coming later in the year while I'm here. And also, again, we talk about how to talk to families about promoting healthy relationships. So the sort of things I talked about before: early consent, bodily autonomy, letting children understand that they can say no, that sort of thing. So that's also covered. Also, we have a section on responding to worries. This is where our video guides come in. So key points to remember. Should you witness something? Should there be a disclosure of information? How to deal with the green, amber and red behaviours in Hackett. Where to go and get advice, and actually really crucially, what could support look like for children? So if it falls into the green, what could you do? What does that look like? If you're dealing with something that is a harmful sexual behaviour and a referral has gone into children's social care, what is the process? Even if you're no longer involved with it, or even if you're on the periphery of that, what could you expect that family to be dealing with and to be going through, or that young person, probably not so much in a nursery setting, but if it's a sibling, for example, what sort of support would you expect them to get? So just so you kind of understand what the different pathways are at the different stages as well. Next slide, please, Kat. So resources. So we have signposting throughout, like I said, specialist guidance, a resource section at the back, which is 2 or 3 pages full of different resources, and it's been separated into different topics as well as for different age groups and settings. We were fortunate enough to have a video training session that was recorded by our colleagues at Barnardo's, which is about an hour's long and focused on child sexual abuse and specifically harmful sexualized behaviours. So that's linked to the toolkit as well. Next slide, please, Kat. I don't know if we've got time to go through this because I'm conscious of making sure you all get away on time this evening, but this is usually the bit where my heart goes into my mouth because we link directly to the NYSCP website. But just to say, we have a dedicated area on the website with all of the partnership design videos with scenarios, the Barnardo's learning, the toolkit itself. You can scan a QR code or you can click on the link to get it up. It's been designed to be portable, so if you're ever on a home visit or you're away from a desktop device, you can look at it on a tablet or what have you, should you need to, and it's all there. Also, our launch event is available on our YouTube site should any of you want to have a look at that. Like I say, I'm conscious that you've all got homes to go to, so unless there are any questions, I'll finish. We'll leave you with this acronym. So just the main things to remember from this, other than the fact there's a toolkit that gives you lots of help and advice. Remain curious. Always think about the context of a situation and that harmful sexual behaviour exists on a continuum. Please think about healthy relationships and the importance of a healthy culture within your settings and encouraging those healthy relationships for the children that you work with and their families. Please remember that all sexualized behaviour requires a response, even if it's not deemed harmful or problematic, and that technology-assisted harmful sexual behaviour is of equal validity to contact offences and more established and known about harmful sexual behaviour. That's it from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Steph. It really is an incredible toolkit, and it's really creative. It's really interactive. So if you do get a chance, just go and have a little look at it, just a little play. And like you say, it's better to have kind of an awareness of that stuff rather than having to kind of find it when you're in that moment and you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm not really sure where to go. So if you do get the time, have a little bit of time familiarising yourself with it. Steph, I would wonder if you'd be so kind as to just put the link for the main page into the chat, and then it's just there, isn't it? And again, Steph will stick around for a couple of minutes before we let her get on with the evening. So if you have got any questions, please pop them in the chat bar. But Helen, I will let you take the next slot.
Lovely, thank you very much. And I'm sure the majority of people know me. I'm Helen Smith, I'm the Early Years Strategy Manager. So next slide, please, Kat. Mine are just, oh, JTAI first. Right, sorry, I thought we were doing my updates first. So we had a JTAI, which was a joint targeted area inspection of multi-agency response. And the theme for this was children from unborn to 7 years old who were victims of domestic abuse. So this was a 3-week inspection. It wasn't just Ofsted, it was the Care Quality Commission, it was the HM Inspectorate of Police, Fire and Rescue, and HM Inspectorate of Probation, which was like I say, a very intense process. So I've put the quote here, which is directly from the JTAI report. Again, I put the report in the sort of key messages, and what I just wanted to highlight again is we're going to invite some colleagues in a minute to actually share their direct experience, because some case studies were chosen which did have children who were victims of domestic abuse who were attending our early years settings. So like I say, the quotes are up there. I won't read them out because I know we're tight for time. So now what I'd like to do is, next slide please, Kat. I'd like to pass over to Emily from Happy Jays, first of all, and then Caroline from Seedlings, who are going to share their direct experience of they were chosen by Ofsted to be case studies. And then I've got a little bit of feedback from both Tiddlywinks and Puddle Ducks, who unfortunately can't be here. They again were chosen with literally less than, what was it, Kat, about 8 hours notice that Ofsted wanted to speak to a couple of settings, and I've got their feedback. And then I've just got a couple of updates just to finish off with before we do the Menti. So if we've got Emily, please, are you with us?
I am, yes.
I was going to say I'd seen you earlier. Thank you, Emily.
So our experience of the whole JTAI process was, I received an email on the Thursday from your key messages, and I read the email and I instantly thought of a child in our setting, and I thought it's just going to be my luck on the weekend that I'm moving house that one of my children is picked. So I thought, well, there's nothing I can do about it, let's wait and see. So Friday came, and on the email it had said we'd hear by dinner time. So 12 o'clock came, and I thought, oh, we're safe, we're through this. About 1:30, I got a phone call. And a member of staff answered the phone and brought it to me and said, I don't know who it is, but it sounds quite important. And it was, I can't remember whether it was Helen or whether it was Julie. It was one of you. Flabbergasted me with yes, my child that I initially thought of had been picked. So I was given a whole boatload of information, given a sort of an hour to read it before we had a Zoom meeting, and we discussed I had to fill out an audit. So that audit process was basically us auditing ourselves and all the sort of information we had on the child, what we'd done, our sort of policies that we'd followed. So in essence, it was just us auditing ourselves. There was a couple of meetings involved in that with Julie and Helen, going through sort of all the feedback. It took a weekend's worth of writing and pulling this report together to make us make sure we highlighted what we did as a setting and sort of how showing our good side, really, wasn't it? It was quite daunting, to say the least. I'm quite a nervous person anyway, so doing the meetings where you sort of sat on a conference call like this, but when you as an early years worker, when you hear Ofsted, you panic anyway. And it wasn't just Ofsted, there was police. It was very, very intimidating, but we got through it. We did it. The Ofsted inspector was really lovely, because we had to have I had to have a one-to-one meeting with her, that was done via Zoom. Could answer everything that she asked. And yeah, that was our experience of it. It was just very overwhelming, but I felt very well supported by Julie and Helen, and sort of we had the opportunity to debrief after every meeting and sort of be able to breathe again, because it was quite overwhelming. And when you're looking at a child my child she wasn't even 2 at this point, so it was quite intimidating. It emotionally, you put yourself back in that position of when you first were aware of the situation, and it was quite. I think I got emotional at a few points, and I'm not sure whether it was exhaustion or all of it, but we made it through and we're done, and it was quite a positive experience in the end. So
it was, and it really, really did showcase your absolutely fantastic work of working in partnership, didn't it?
Yeah.
Working in partnership, you had the child absolutely at the centre of everything you did. The voice of the child absolutely came through in what you said, and everything that you did and do. And like I say, you can't prepare for this because it was dropped on us, it was dropped on you.
Yeah.
And sort of it was because you had those in place already that you were so strong and so confident in what you were able to share with
that's
the
thing,
inspectors.
because we had it all. I was on the phone to you guys, and I was able to just pull out the folder, and it wasn't. I imagine it would have been a different story had we not had everything to sort of hand and have that knowledge straight away. I could imagine it would have been quite a different experience. But looking back now that we're on the other side of it and the reports come out and it's so good, it was a nice experience now. At the time, not so much, but now it was a good experience.
I think Kat and I will agree as well, not at the time.
No.
Thank you so much, Emily,
No
and again, thank you again for obviously everything you do, and that this goes to obviously to everybody, everything that you do for the children in your provision. Lovely, thank you. And
Thank
Caroline,
you.
Please. Like I say, we had no decision on this. It was these cases were purely selected by the inspectors. So is Caroline here?
Yeah, I'm here, Helen.
Fantastic. Thank you, Caroline.
Hi. Just the same as Emily, you read you read the emails that come through. I read the email and I just thought, oh, North Yorkshire's huge. Obviously, I thought of the child that is in our setting, and I thought, oh, but North Yorkshire's huge. There's absolutely no way. And then Friday came and lunchtime went, and I was like, oh, thank heavens for that. And then the phone went, and I literally thought, you are absolutely kidding me that we've been chosen. But Helen and Julie were nothing but supportive the whole way through with all the Zoom calls and all the support. It was incredibly intimidating, especially when we had to sit down and do the review with everybody there. But I take from it that you've just got to be in that moment, and like Helen has said, just do what we do. We do it every day. We're there for the children. All we think about is what's best for the children, and it's just be in that moment and not be intimidated by the big words that all the other professionals use. Because we work with children, we don't use those big words, do we? But we're all here for the same thing, and that's to do what's best for the children. And that's what I took from it. I was away for the actual inspection day, so I met with I was in Scotland, so I met with Ofsted via Zoom. I actually worked alongside a local primary school because we share siblings. And so we just got on the call and just talked through what we did, what we do, There was lots of talk about children. How did we gather the children's voice? Because sometimes children don't have a voice yet. So I just talked over what we have in place for our children anyway. And like Emily said, the inspector was absolutely really lovely. I did not feel intimidated on the call just before it, just not on the call. She made you put you at ease quite quickly. And then you just talked it through. And it's just showcasing it. That's what the thing is, because we're all not great at showcasing what we do, don't we? Because we just do it on a day-to-day basis. But this was the moment where we just showcased and talked about what we all did. How there was lots of talk on the Ofsted call about how was our voice, did we feel our voice was valued with all the other professionals involved, and were we included, and all of that. And I took away from that, we are. I do think that in North Yorkshire, the team that is there to safeguard the children do recognise early years are important, and because sometimes you can feel like we're on our own, can't we? But I did come away with that. So like Emily said, it was at the end of it. Now we've done it. It was quite a nice experience. Not doing it all, but at the end it was quite nice.
You were, and again, Caroline, you were absolutely fantastic. I have to say as well, just hands up, that when we said we would phone by lunchtime, Julie and I were sitting there waiting for the phone call from Ofsted, and we were going, well, come on. And literally, as soon as we got the calls, I think we'd rung both of you within about 10 minutes. So they were very late. But yeah, as you say, again, you were fantastic. It was your partnership working with that school where you'd got joint children, wasn't it? It was that family, you and the school together looked after those children and looked after that family and those families' interests. And yes, we absolutely appreciated you joining from Scotland. And but yeah, you absolutely voice of the child. That really strong partnership really came through, Caroline. So thank you. And again, I think it just showcases, as you said, Caroline, in early years, we're not very good about shouting because we just do the doing and we just get on with it because we put the children always first. And I think, that really came through from both of the case studies and the 2 Ofsted phone calls, which I'll share with you in a minute, that actually, we're blooming good. We're blooming good at what we do. So thank you. So like I say, again, on top of the case studies, we didn't know they were going to do this. They suddenly decided they wanted to speak to 2 providers. And so it was Tiddlywinks at Easingwold and Puddle Ducks at Sheriff Hutton. Tina can't be with us, so I'll just share her sort of feedback to me again from Puddle Ducks. She said it was a really positive experience. The inspector on the day was really grateful for the time, and the conversation really flowed. This was a telephone conversation. She said what she had to remember was it wasn't about their setting being inspected. What they wanted to know was about that partnership with the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Partnership, how they get their knowledge. And she said it was a lovely opportunity to actually really showcase their strong safeguarding knowledge, their practices, and to actually really celebrate the effective partnerships that they have with other agencies and with their families. So that was the feedback from Puddle Ducks. From Rowena at Tiddlywinks, again, she said it was a genuinely positive and reassuring experience. I'll cut Rowena short because I know we're tight for time. They discussed with them how the local authority shared information, how they kept babies safe, what did they do when the baby doesn't have a child, how they recorded all of that. They specifically obviously talked about domestic abuse and the fact that we'd had the IDAS at a previous online safeguarding meeting, and that came up. So she said in response, they were looking at how the local authority or how the Safeguarding Partnership share information about the courses that are available, comprehensive pathway for the DSLs, information that's on key messages, being able to access both myself and the Families Information Service, and the early help training sessions that they did. She said what really stood out was the expectors' interest in understanding how, as a setting, they work in partnership with local services, and they were able to speak about being able to work with the Safeguarding Partnership with the social workers, with the local authority, with early help, and actually having that safeguarding support around them. She said it wasn't intimidating, and she said it was a real opportunity to highlight the strengths of local collaboration and a shared commitment across the agencies to identify concerns early and to offer the right support. And she said again, which is lovely to hear from three people, and I know it was the same for Tina, that the JTAI affirmed that you're not working alone, that as a setting you've got that support around from different organisations, different services to actually keep children safe, and sort of how you support them within your setting. So we just wanted to share that, and just to really celebrate again, the fantastic work that goes on, as we know, in early years. So I think all that's left is just very briefly for me, Kat. I think it was just to highlight. Obviously, we know that there's some changes from 1st of September. I've shared the links before in key messages, but again, they're just there. That document's brilliant, highlights the difference between childminders and group settings. Next slide, please, Kat. Again, this is a poster that's available on the website. Again, if you've not signed up to the Foundation Years website, which is part of the DFE, please do. Everything comes then directly into your inbox. And again, that's a really good sort of quick poster to go to. Next slide, please, Kat. I just want to highlight, if you've not already accessed these resources, this is the Childcare Works, which is a partnership organisation of the DFE, and what they have available in their toolkits. That's how you get into it. If you've not already accessed it, you can see there the opening pages. And then the next slide, please, Kat. That takes you to the specific, sort of like recruitment, safer recruitment, HR guidance on there, because obviously, safer recruitment, all part of your safeguarding sort of duties and responsibilities. And then just the last slide there, Kat. Again, when you go down to the next page, again, this is just to show you sort of where the different sort of tabs and routes take you. So again, lots of information and there to support you with sort of things to do with recruitment and safer recruitment. Then just from me, just one more thing, a quick reminder that if you're in a position where you're needing to be put in a ladder referral, even if you haven't got all the information, just put as much information onto that ladder form as possible. And again, it will be scanned by the team, and then they'll contact you for that information. So don't be afraid to put in a ladder referral if you've not got exactly all the information. And if you're at that point where you're about to put the referral in, you're not quite sure, there is the telephone number on the bottom of the referral form. It isn't an advice and helpline, because otherwise they will be inundated, because they are inundated anyway. But it is there that if you needed just that little bit of extra, should I be, shouldn't I? That telephone number is still there available for you to contact. And that's